go.
Okay, ready? Silence.
Thank you.
Let them get out while we're here.
So since it's limestone, are there...
Hang on. You want to shoot plants?
More your spatter dock, I believe. Maiden cane was back, what you saw.
It's just like a
Yeah,
little
we should shoot this while we're here.
All right.
for
Here we go.
mussels.
Yeah.
Hang on 1 second, please.
Actually, the boat ramp that we went out of,
Yeah.
just that's pretty much the area.
Describe to us what we're seeing right there.
Okay, right here is the limestone bluff of Lake Waccamaw.
You can talk in a normal voice. I know you want him to hear it. But we
Okay.
just said that.
Gotcha.
We got the microphone.
You're welcome, please. Here we go. And anytime.
Okay. Describe to us what we're seeing right there.
Okay, right here is the limestone bluff of Lake Waccamaw. This is located on the north shore. This neutralizes the acid coming out of 4 creeks that feed into Waccamaw, which gives us the neutral pH. That's why Waccamaw has such biodiversity out here.
Put your hand back where it was, please. Yeah, so maybe in your answer you could also set up very quickly about the tannic acid making it acidic, but the limestone makes it more neutral.
Okay.
Can you do it again? Take your hand away.
Describe to us what we're seeing right there.
What you see right here is the limestone bluff of Lake Waccamaw. There are 4 creeks that feed into Lake Waccamaw. These creeks are highly filled with what we call tannic acid. The acid that flows in is neutralized by this limestone bluff, which gives the lake...
Could I just stop you for a second, Tony? I think you could point to at the beginning, and then you can just talk
Okay,
to Maddie. I think you look more comfortable if you're not leaning on it.
gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Describe to us what we're seeing.
So what you see here is the limestone bluff that's located on the north shore of Lake Waccamaw. There are 4 creeks that feed into the lake that are highly filled with what we call tannic acid. That's what gives the lake its dark tea color. This acidity is neutralized by this bluff here, which gives the lake a neutral pH. That is for the extreme biodiversity that you see out here.
And then we'll have you do it again, and Bob's going to get a close-up.
you're good.
What I'm gonna do is show them this is basically what you're in right now is a aerial of hydrilla. Any shots you want in around or anything? I'm just.
What do you think, Bob?
I can't cover that. Do you want to shoot a drone shot?
I can make life interesting. I can do a wheelie or two. Just what we ordered.
I just got back from a trip
Up the trail.
Maine.
Where's beer?
Whatever it was, it was 28 degrees in the morning. I think we clocked out to 50.
Still a work day.
So
hang on. Yeah, let's just shoot it without any of this, and then we'll do it. So what? You're not a robot.
Oh.
You just
So
do it with feeling.
yeah, with feeling. So when we're ready to go, Maddie, not yet.
Stand by.
Just put your hand in, hold it there for a count of 4, and then move it away.
Ready? We're gonna go Hollywood. Action. And a little bit lower this time, and
Go a
action.
little quicker,
Yep. Hold it longer.
but hold it longer.
Action.
Rather than bring it straight up, just
Stand by. Here we go. And action. Yep.
and did you do the same thing for the near one too?
Yeah. I'm still rolling. Here we go. Action. A little bit longer.
Oh, yeah, hold it.
Hang on.
longer when
Hang
you're
on.
down there.
Hang on. Action.
Okay, and then one more I had. So
Stand
just
by.
say it to yourself in your head.
Yeah. And action.
This is the fat bucket. This is the spiked.
Yeah, but don't say
Use
it
one finger.
Oh,
because it's going to
oh,
be the
okay.
narration.
Okay.
And you should use a finger.
And
like
get,
point-
and
be
get
like
your
a
finger
pointer.
closer to it. Like, I mean, really that far from it.
Use your index finger.
Ready? Action.
But faster.
Okay.
Yep. Hang on.
And with one finger, not 3.
Because I'm really tight on it, so that's what we're going to see.
Okay.
And action. Say it to yourself. Do it quicker and go.
And do it one more time, but faster, because that's not how you normally do it. You're going like in slow motion.
Okay.
And closer to it. And action.
Okay, and then do it one more time, but just hold it on the second one. You don't take it away at the second one.
Ready? Action.
But hold it.
Just
Don't-
leave your finger there
Okay.
on the
Just leave
second
your
one.
finger there.
Ready?
Yeah.
Action.
Good. That was a
Good.
good one. Okay. So that's the
Wrong. All right, Tom, do you want to point it out? Point it out again. this, whatever that is, closer to it. Even closer. Do it again. Yeah,
You
that was
want me
good
to
there.
hold-
I'm really tight.
Okay, ready?
And go. Okay. Go. Of course, the sun totally came out on that. Hang on.
Say when.
And the sun's going back. Thank you, sun. You're killing me. Good God. Go.
You see the little white top of it? Are you seeing this portion?
Teeny bit. Not much though. I got to shoot from above and we're going to see that. Is that important?
It just kind of identifies it, I think.
Okay, point again. All right. Do you want to shoot it from above?
Got a little cloud cover here for a little bit. Let's do it.
If you want to do name and all that stuff.
Yeah, if you,
Roll.
yeah, just need you to say your name and then if you could spell it for us as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Harry Foley. That's Harry. Foley, Foley.
Okay, gotcha. And what's your title?
Okay, I'm here in my capacity as chairman of the Friends of Lake Waccamaw State Park. We are a subsidiary of the Friends of North Carolina State Parks.
Got you. And you
Always look at him, please.
Yeah.
And turn your body toward. There.
Yeah, there we
Perfect.
go.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're no longer
Yeah.
here. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Thanks, Harry.
and then you former city manager as well.
I was the town manager of Town of Lake Waccamaw from 2015 till 2018. I served 3.5 years. When they hired me, I gave them 3, and I stayed 6 more months, and I enjoyed every minute of it. But since then, I'm enjoying life more.
Yeah, I hear you. What? How long have you lived in Lake Waccamaw, by the way?
I'll tell you a great story about this. I'm originally from Germany, and I have a stepfather who married my mother when they were in the service. I came to the United States in 1964 when I was 16 years old, and we came to Columbus County. And I was purely miserable because I came from a different environment. And my dad's family, they were poor people, they were sharecroppers and all this. And we'd always lived in stone houses, brick houses, and I never been into a wooden house or anything like that. So I felt, I was really depressed. My mother sort of sensed that. So she put me in the car and she drove me. You talked about Dale Seafood. We went to Dale Seafood there and she showed me Lake Waccamaw. Remember, this is 1964. And we were on our way to Arizona to Fort Huachuca. My dad was in the Army, and that's where he was stationed. And I promised my mother, I said, if we ever have to come back to Columbus County, I said, I am going to live at Lake Waccamaw. That's 1964. 1966, we come back to Columbus County. I enrolled at Southeastern Community College in 1967. By 1971, when I graduated from Western Carolina, I came back, got a job as a teacher, and you know the first thing I did? I leased the house in Lake Waccamaw in 1971. By 1974, I had bought a house on Lake Waccamaw, and I've lived at Lake Waccamaw ever since.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Did not know that. Well, so obviously the lake means a lot to you. The town means a lot to you. What I mean, when you hear something like hydrilla is in this town that you love, the lake, what's your reaction? Are you concerned?
When the hydrilla scare initially came to light, of course, I was like everybody else, you know, what are we going to do? You know, I have 2 jet skis, I have a boat, you know, and what we were told hydrilla was going to take over and you can't put a boat in the lake anymore. So the question was, am I concerned? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tremendously.
Obviously. And you, so let's see. So now, you're worried, I mean, there's 7 species found nowhere else in the world.
Yeah.
Does that, like what, are you concerned like with the treatments of the lake? Like, were you worried about them being affected at all?
I have faith in the scientists that are doing this, and I'm not a scientist, obviously. And I'm, you know, now these days we don't have a whole lot of faith in government or any government entities, but let's be specific. When it comes to the treatment of hydrilla, I think that's been one of the best things that the state of North Carolina was able to do for Columbus County and Lake Waccamaw. It's working. I think that the test results speak for themselves. Yeah. So, you know, we're still concerned. And while we're at it, let me tell you that the initial investment, where everybody knew it was going to cost millions and millions of dollars, the town of Lake Waccamaw, before I was town manager, my predecessor, they stepped to the plate. They contributed $50,000. And I can tell you $50,000 in a small town is quite a bit of money to take out of the budget. The Columbus County Commissioners ended up $50,000. But then the North Carolina legislature stepped up to the plate, our legislative delegation, and then Senator Rabin from Brunswick County, who is a resident, was born in Columbus County, and he also stepped up to the plate. And the funding for the hydrilla has come from the legislature to the state park, and they have been able, you know, every year, well, we don't know whether we can get you the money, but it always happens to show up, which I think that's a great thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the funding, it's been a great success so far.
Yes, it really has. Matter of fact, I think the success has been, I can't speak for the superintendent, you may want to ask him that as well, but I think it's been more successful than anybody had anticipated it being, really.
Got you.
Did you ask him how much has been spent totally on the hydrilla treatment?
How much, do you know total, how much has been spent on it?
I really have not. I mean, we can get the figures for you, but I can tell you, but it's been in the millions. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so like in the initial years of the treatment, when they're saying, well, we don't know if you can get the funding to you,
Yeah.
I mean, are you concerned you were the town manager at the time?
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, yeah.
I had, believe it or not, and it sounds kind of funny, I'm not a politician, okay? But I actually had faith in the system and that they would come up with the money from somewhere, somehow, and so far they have, you know. And I think there's a reason for that, though. Lake Waccamaw is an economic engine for Columbus County, and we want to expand that. You know, ecotourism is a big business. We really haven't been able to tap into it the way we wanted to, but I can tell you we're still doing things to tap into ecotourism, and if the lake were full of hydrilla, you know, that would all go by the wayside, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm just going to look at my questions here. But let's see. So,
One thing about asking is, besides the economic aspects of Lake Waccamaw, what is it that he loves the most about the lake?
so what, I'm getting fed questions here. What makes the lake so special, do you think? Like, what do you like most about it, would you say?
Well, first of all, it's, you know, it's one of the 9,000 bay lakes. It's the biggest one. It's the largest lake between Maine and Florida, 9,000 square miles of water. We're an undiscovered gem, and a lot of citizens, by the way, would like to keep it that way, but as from an administrative standpoint, when I was town manager, you know, you have to tell the people, you know, we can't provide these services unless we have revenue streams. And if we don't incorporate some tourism industry into this, the revenue streams are going to have to come out of your pocketbook in terms of raising taxes. And nobody wants to have the taxes raised. So we think, I'll give you a good example. We were fortunate enough to get some money, again, from the legislature. And maybe you get to see it tomorrow. But we built a 480-foot bridge as a bike and pedestrian bridge on the other side of the lake. And the reason for that is we have an annual fitness event which is called Take the Lake, and it's a personal fitness challenge. But for many years, and the goal was to go around the lake by bike, by foot, and there was a swim and a kayak. Well, we could never, out of the 10 years that we had, we were only to do the full route 3 times because the dam was always flooded and whatever. So we got the,
Hang on one second. Changing it, please.
as I was saying, we got some funding from the legislature, and we had to lobby for it. And DOT gave us $480,000, and we built a bridge across the dam, which completes the route across all the way around the lake for a physical fitness challenge. But we're thinking farther ahead, and that is, I'm sure your viewers are familiar with the Mountains to the Sea Trail. Well, we want to be included in the Mountains to the Sea Trail. And so now we are working on a grant that the town of Lake Waccamaw and the Friends of Lake Waccamaw State Park have initiated as a $35,000 planning grant. And when we get the planning grant, which we're supposed to find out at the end of November this year, then we hope to get enough money to complete a 4.5-mile trail, which would make everything bike and pedestrian accessible. And the projected cost on that project is about $4 million. So we're holding our fingers crossed. You know, if we get the $35,000 planning grant, then we know basically what we want to do, but it has to be put on paper, and DOT has to be up to DOT standards, and we're hopeful that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got you. What I was gonna, so of course you're trying to bring tourism in and
Yeah.
stuff. I know like hydrilla comes from when you bring a boat from outside,
Yes.
right? Is there? I mean, you got to be concerned about washing boats,
we,
right?
we are concerned about that, and I think that the superintendent probably can tell you more about that. But we have 2 boat ramps, and there are plans in the making to have wash stations not when you pull the boat out. You have the wash stations before you put the boat in. That's more important. Also, of course, you ought to wash it after you get out as well, because you may pick up some hydrilla here, but there are other places in North Carolina that have hydrilla. You know, chances are that it can come in here. So, you know, an ounce of wrenches, a pound of cure or something like that. So, you know, we could use some money to build the wash stations, you know, at the 2 accesses. And then, of course, then you have to educate the public, because some people, like I have my own boat ramp, I have a boat stall and stuff like that. If I were to take my boat somewhere else, you know, would I be smart enough to wash it? I hope I would, but you know, some people may or may not do that.
Yeah, I mean, so of course you're very involved with the town. What do you tell someone like another town like this? They have a big body of water that they really depend on. What do you tell people? Like, hydrilla is spreading a lot. What do you tell people in other places where the hydrilla is really bad? You know, having dealt with it here.
You want me to tell you the truth? Don't come to our lake. I mean, really, come to visit, but leave your boats at home, you know, or at least clean them. Or, you know, you got to be aggressive in the treatment. You know, there are different philosophies on how to treat it. You know, some people didn't want to put the chemicals in the water for the simple reason it may, you know, have adverse effects on the indigenous species that are here in the lake. But so far, and I hope you've seen it yourself, they have not been affected by this, because some scientists must have done their research, and whatever the application that's being put into the lake does not harm the other wildlife in it, which is good.
Yeah.
Oh, one
Absolutely.
second here until this car goes. Yeah, got good stuff on it. We need to be a little time for B-roll so we might just ask them any questions about hydrilla that you didn't ask. But for sure.
Okay. Well, I do have one more question
Okay.
that I want to
All
ask,
right.
but yeah, just doing some consulting. Yeah, I did just want to ask another question. You were talking about building the boardwalk.
Yes.
You can actually see some of the mussels from the boardwalk, is
Yes,
that right?
that's correct, yeah. And I think I told you the story when we talked beforehand. They actually came in and removed all the mussels before they started the construction of the bike pedestrian bridge. We don't call it a boardwalk. It truly is a bridge, and we can show you some pictures. But they relocated those mussels so they would not be damaged. I mean, and that's Wildlife Resources, and their staff came and did that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And yeah.
Move forward just a bit. You're almost to touch it. Thanks.
Okay. And so I guess that's most of what we needed, but is there anything else you can see that maybe we've just forgotten to ask you about the hydrilla or anything else?
Well,
Let's stop a second.
Oh.
Hang
Yeah.
on 1 second, please.
Gotta get the camera
And we are
right.
rolling.
So I mean, was there anything else we just haven't covered yet about the hydrilla, or should have asked?
I think if the one message that I like to leave your viewers with is thanks to the efforts of the park staff, the cooperation from the legislature, and the cooperation from the citizens, I think they have done an excellent job of containing the hydrilla and keeping them from spreading.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Harry.
You're welcome.
All
I
right.
appreciate
So
it.
we just need some
Yeah.
Okay. Go. Stop. show for you. Emily, we were rolling for the name and all that. Just talk with Emily. We're no longer here.
Sure.
Thank you.
So can you just say and spell your first and last name, and then just say your title?
Sure. My name is Brina Jones, B-R-E-N-A-J-O-N-E-S. I think I had to think about that. I am the research coordinator for the Central Region of our Aquatic Wildlife Diversity Program for the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission.
So can you talk a little bit about the surveys that you do in this area and what they entail and how you count the species?
Sure. In Lake Waccamaw specifically, we do surveys for fish species here annually. There is a federally listed fish species, the Waccamaw silverside. It is listed as threatened. They are an endemic species to the lake, and part of the recovery plan goals is to monitor the population in the lake itself to assess if there need to be additional conservation actions taken. In addition to...
Let's stop. Airplane.
So the surveys,
Yes. In addition to Waccamaw silverside, there are also the Waccamaw killifish and the Waccamaw darter that live in the lake, as well as in the river and surrounding tributaries. So we monitor populations of all three of those species on an annual basis, and then every other year we come and do mussel surveys here. There are a suite of mussel species in the lake. We have rare and more common species. In addition to the mussels, we also collect
We can
data.
stop again. This
so can you start over explaining the surveys that you do with the animals? And
You want me to start over with like the fish?
Yeah.
Okay. So every year we come down to the lake here and we do surveys for the endemic fish species. There is the Waccamaw silverside, which is a federally threatened fish. Federally threatened fish. Hopefully you can fix that later.
Let's start again.
I'm going to start that again.
All right. And we're rolling. Emily.
So if you could just tell us about the endemic species and the surveys you do to count them.
Sure. There are 3 endemic fish species in the lake. The Waccamaw silverside is a federally threatened species listed under the Endangered Species Act. And the Waccamaw killifish and the Waccamaw darter are also endemic to the lake, the river, and the surrounding tributaries. So we come down and we do surveys for them annually to monitor the populations. This helps meet one of the goals in the Waccamaw silverside's recovery plan to help determine if we need to take additional conservation actions for the species or if they're continuing to do well within their native range. And then we also, every other year, we add in surveys for the native freshwater mussels in the lake, as well as the snails. There are 2 endemic snail species in the lake. These are what we call micro snails. They're very, very small, the size of a grain of sand. Some of them are smaller. And in addition, we have larger aquatic snail species that we track as well.
Can you talk about the taxonomy reclassification for the mussel species?
Sure. So there are 2 mussel species that were originally thought to be endemic species to the lake. This was the Waccamaw spike, Elliptio waccamaensis, and the Waccamaw fat mucket, Lampsillus fullercati. Some recent genetic work has determined that these are actually lake forms of more widely distributed species. However, it's still important to manage those as separate lake populations because that genetic diversity is an important component of the species' ability to adapt to changing conditions range-wide as we're dealing with the issues of climate change and changes in water temperature, changes in water chemistry. Having what we call that plasticity in their genome to have some individuals that can survive in conditions that may have been different than they were historically is really important.
Emily, if you can ask her try not to use words like endemic that are jargon and explain it in plain English. And that means you can't use those words in your questions either.
I will define them.
Okay. So can you speak a little bit about the habitats, like the places that the
Hang on one
species here
second.
live?
Move it in a little more of an angle and closer, please. The sun's just killing us. There you go. Trying to keep it out of your eyes, but it's tough. Great. That's a little bit better. Thank you. Okay,
So can you describe a little bit about where these species live in the lake particularly?
Yeah, the Waccamaw silverside is what we call a pelagic species. They prefer open water.
Start again. Hit the mic. You hit the mic. Sorry. But use your hands. That's great. Sorry.
The silverside it prefers open water. It's what we call a pelagic species. There's another silverside species, the brook silverside, which has been introduced into the lake. It's a non-native species. We were initially worried about competition between the two, that the brook silversides might outcompete the native Waccamaw silversides. But the brook silversides prefer the habitat in the emergent vegetation. And so there hasn't been any conflict between the two that we've noted, and both are thriving. The killifish and the darter are usually found closer to shore. The darters really like these emergent maiden cane beds. They hide in there among all the stalks, and the killifish just move into any cover they can find. The mussels can be found throughout the lake in all depths of water. They settle in the bottom and feed on organic material and algae and bacteria down there. And the snails too can be found anywhere in the lake.
So can you talk about when hydrilla was first discovered in the lake and what your reaction was?
So it was first observed by some citizens that live on the lake. They observed unusually dense vegetation in this northwestern quadrant of the lake near the Wildlife Commission boat access area. They reported it to park staff. Park staff contacted NC State, which has an aquatic weed survey program, and they came out and confirmed that it was hydrilla, which is a very noxious invasive aquatic weed. That fall of 2012, the park staff helped convene a technical advisory committee, which consisted of agencies like state parks, the Wildlife Commission, the Heritage Program, as well as federal agencies like Fish and Wildlife and local stakeholders, to talk about how we were going to address this threat to the lake, because hydrilla can choke out a body of water, and much of Lake Waccamaw is very shallow. It had the potential to completely choke out the lake habitats, which also causes problems for recreational use. It's very, very thick. And so we needed to nip that in the bud while we can. So NC State did an initial survey to determine the extent of coverage, and then we moved into a management plan with the TAC.
Can you talk about some of the alternatives to fluoridone and then fluoridone itself?
Yeah, so the two main alternatives which were discussed for the lake were application of an herbicide, which is fluoridone, commonly called sonar, which targets hydrilla specifically, or stocking grass carp in the lake. Grass carp are an exotic species, but they do feed on all types of vegetation, and they can be effective at removing hydrilla. We opted not to use grass carp because they would have also eaten the maiden cane beds, which provide important habitat for the native species. So that's why we decided on the fluoridone application.
If the hydrilla had been allowed to spread, what would the effect have been on the endemic species?
So it certainly would have choked out all the lake habitat. It would have just been solid hydrilla, the entire water column, solid flat bed across the surface. For fish like Waccamaw silverside, as I told you, it prefers open water, so it would not have been able to survive in those conditions. When you have thick hydrilla beds like that, they also cause DO, dissolved oxygen, to drop very low overnight in the water as plants use oxygen overnight, which causes problems for the mussels and snails. There's no more oxygen in the water column. They can't survive those conditions. It also would have caused a problem. You can't drive a boat through it. You can't swim through it very well. So it basically is a problem for everyone.
So you said previously when we talked that the fluoridone does affect some of the local vegetation. Can you elaborate on that?
I'm probably not the best qualified person to talk about this. Fluoridone is targeting the hydrilla specifically. It doesn't affect the maiden cane. But like I said, I'm not a plant person, so I can't answer that question properly.
Okay. Can you talk about?
We can ask you what impact did the fluoridone have on the animal?
Yeah. Can you talk about the fluoridone's impact on the species themselves?
Yeah, that was certainly an important question, especially for the mussels. Many mollusks, which include mussels and snails, are much more sensitive to a wide array of chemicals than vertebrates like fish are. So we had a graduate student at NC State who did a focus study on exposing mussel larvae and young juvenile mussels to fluoridone in the lab to see if there were any toxicity effects that we should be concerned about. And they found at the levels that we were applying it, they didn't see any significant effects. So we felt that at that point it was worth the risk of applying it. There still could be some chronic long-term effects, but we balanced that against the effect of letting the hydrilla spread unchecked, which would be much more damaging for the lake as a whole.
So it didn't have any effect on the fish or the species?
No, no. It has been studied with fish before and hasn't been found to have any effect on those.
Okay. Can you talk about how how you think that the hydrilla is brought in and how people can stop the spread of it?
Hydrilla is most often spread by humans. Any equipment that goes in the water, such as boats or trailers, or even people wearing waders, boots, fishing equipment, as well as water that's put into live wells, can all carry pieces of hydrilla. It can sprout from very small fragments, so you don't necessarily need a root. The plant actually grows from a tuber, kind of like a potato, but all it needs is one little piece to get started. So North Carolina does have an Aquatic Weed Act, which does make it illegal to transport any of these noxious weed species. And so we are ramping up our campaigns to educate people that we do have this legislation, and there are also the three main ways we tell them they can help out is to clean all of their equipment whenever they leave a body of water, and when they go to the next body of water, drain everything out of their boats and live wells, and dry all their equipment thoroughly before they go to another body of water. And then we add on a never move to the end of that.
And then, yeah, is there anything else in particular you want the public to know about the lake or the work that you do?
Let me think about that one for a second. I mean, this is a public resource. We're a public trust agency. We're managing these resources. They are the property of the citizens of North Carolina, so we are managing with them for citizens' use and enjoyment. The citizen stakeholders here were also critical in observing the hydrilla. They're a very important partner, so we certainly don't want people to feel like we are managing things without their input or are not interested in their opinions or involvement in these projects, because they are very critical to that. We have several other local stakeholders who are working on sponsoring things like boat cleaning days, handing out flyers so people are aware of things like cleaning equipment, not moving organisms to different bodies of water. So having that public involvement is a very important part. People tell their friends things that they've learned. And everybody, usually people who fish are possessive about protecting the integrity of their fishing areas. So, you know, keeping these habitats intact for things like sunfish and other popular sport fish species like crappie and bass is important as well. And so we're trying to help people understand that keeping the hydrilla out of that helps those species as well.
Can you explain to Emily, without using the word endemic, why saving species that are found nowhere else in the world is important in the larger scheme of things?
Aside from things just having intrinsic value, the importance of saving unique species, well, one is, as I mentioned, these are public trust resources.
Start again. You see, as I mentioned, and we don't know what you said before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and just keep looking at Emily if you would.
Look at
Oh,
Emily.
Thank
okay.
you.
So,
Sorry.
Emily, why don't you ask that question?
She's moving. What? Better not be.
Yes, so can you just explain the importance of protecting these species that are found nowhere else in the world?
Yeah, so unique species these are public trust resources. They belong to all of the citizens of North Carolina. It's not really up to any one person to decide which one is more important than the other. They all have equal importance, and they all have their role within these ecosystems. But in the bigger picture, all of this surface water is part of our water supply. and everybody certainly has a stake in that. Most people in North Carolina are still on wells, which are connected to groundwater, which is then connected to surface water. And if we have habitats and bodies of water that are healthy enough to support these species that are most sensitive, then that means that we have a safe water supply going into the future, which is really the overarching goal for everyone.
And then can you just talk about the levels of species populations since you've started your surveys? Like if there's been any dips or...
Oh, if they've had changes over
Yes.
time? We started doing our monitoring surveys here for fish and mussels in 2009. For all of the species that we've been monitoring, we haven't seen any significant changes. Things have been relatively stable overall. In addition, we have, rediscovered some species that haven't been seen in the lake in a long time. There's a rare mussel species called the Savannah lilliput. It has been petitioned for federal listing previously, and we found some in the lake. They had not been found there for about 50 years. So that's been a really exciting discovery. We've also just had rediscovered a rare mad tom species, which is a very small catfish that we thought was extirpated from the lake. They hadn't been seen here since 2002. They just been rediscovered in the past 2 weeks. So those are very exciting finds.
Great. I
Yeah.
think we're all
That's
set.
it.
That was excellent.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you so much. I really...
Tom. Okay.
Anytime you're ready, Serena.
Could you kind of face me while you're doing that, please? There you go. Perfect. Okay. Can you get in the shade? Yeah, just keep looking. Thank you. Hang on to that. Hang on to that.
Yeah, it just...
Just be really examining it. Do me a favor, I want you to just have it underwater and then pull it out and start looking at it. That make sense?
We'll start over.
Yeah. Anytime. Give me one more, the sun is killing me. Sorry. Anytime.
Okay, so can you briefly tell us what the muscle you're holding right now is, and
Well, I think
you want to pick it up?
we'd like you to kind of pick it up from underwater, bring it up, and then
Just start talking?
take a look at Emily.
Okay. Do you want?
Or start talking. Actually, start talking.
You want me to just start
describing
talking?
What it is that you've got.
Okay. You don't want her to ask the question again first?
No, you've already asked.
So this mussel right here is a tidewater mucket.
Let's start again. Your volume was a lot different. Sorry.
Sorry, because I'm talking at
Yeah,
her.
I know. I kind of.
Yeah, you got a microphone right there.
Yeah, it's right there.
You don't have to project.
Okay, let's pick her up again. And anytime.
So this mussel is a
All
tide.
right, sorry. Start talking about the muscle. I'll get a level while you're doing it. Okay, pick her up again and go. And anytime.
This mussel is a tidewater mucket. They are common throughout the lake. This animal is actually a female, and she is gravid, which means she has larvae inside her gill right now. Those are already fertilized, and she will be releasing those onto a fish that comes nearby. Those larvae will live there as parasites until they're ready to live on their own. We find these in large numbers when we do most of our surveys, but they are a native species to the lake, and it's good to see them doing well.
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect.
Be it without your, yeah, that's perfect. There you go. And you can show us a different side. Yeah, show us the top, bottom. Perfect.
And if you could just kind of examine it yourself, as see every aspect of it.
Oh,
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, Matt.
Okay, Julie, I need you to say your whole name for me.
All right.
Okay.
Hang on. Everybody. Here we go, guys.
Normally what it sounds like here.
Here we go.
It'd be good if you're all on this side.
Yeah, just go over
so
there.
that
Want to
your wife
distract her.
doesn't look at us. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Or you.
All right.
Okay, Julie, I need you to say your full name for me and spell it for me.
Julie Stocks, Juliestocks.
Thank you. And could you describe what organization you're part of in regards to Lake Waccamaw, and what is your position?
First, can I say I have been a resident here for close to 45 years, so that makes me very interested in the quality of the water here at Lake Waccamaw. So about 11 years ago, Coastal Carolina University decided to adopt North Carolina as part of their program they started in South Carolina. It's a volunteer water quality sampling program. And so they started in 2006 in South Carolina. They have 12 river sites there along the Waccamaw River and Lake Waccamaw, and the river down to the South Carolina line is a part of that Waccamaw rivershed. So we at Lake Waccamaw have 4 sampling sites, and we are part of that wonderful system. It's one of the only that I understand that has 2 states cooperating to do this particular environmental sampling.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second, please. Are you going to stay there, Drew? I'm just asking.
I can move.
Yeah. Come on over here. Thanks. We're good, Matty.
What makes the waters of Lake Waccamaw different than other Bay Lakes in North Carolina?
Well, we're fed primarily from creeks that have a lot of tannic acid in them. And the tannic acid makes the water turn like a tea color, kind of dark. And many times you can't see the bottom. Most of the time you can't. Then we have something I think is unique to all the rest of the Bay Lakes. We have a limestone bluff. So that tempers the acidity of the lake. So it's pretty neutral. And we do test for pH in one of the things that we sample for.
Okay. And how did hydrilla affect the water quality here at Lake Waccamaw?
First, it created a panic with the citizens of Lake Waccamaw and the whole county, thinking that it could take over the whole lake and we would not be able to boat in it or swim or anything. So we had a task force that was from South Carolina as well as North Carolina to come together with with experts to find out how we might get rid of it. Should we use chemicals? Should we use a kind of a carp, like a big goldfish, to eat it? Should we drain the lake? And finally they decided on a chemical that it would feed the like pellets, and they had several different places that they fed it where it was concentrated. And over a 5-year period of time, they have not found any this past year, and then again this fall they looked and they could not find any traces of hydrilla. So we are crossing our fingers that it would not come back. And to answer your question specifically, in our results from our sampling, we did not notice any difference from the hydrilla.
Okay. How extensive was the hydrilla here at Lake Waccamaw?
I was telling you about the 4 sites that the sampling sites. My team, Team 8, we have 6 volunteers. We have the 2 sites that had most of the hydrilla. At the dam, there was a small patch, right, not where the new bridge is, but close by. A small patch there that was quickly removed with the treatment.
We are rolling.
Okay. So how extensive was the hydrilla within Lake Waccamaw?
There were 2 primary spots that they detected it, and it just so happens that my team samples from those very sites. One is at the Waccamaw Dam, where the lake stops and the Waccamaw River starts. There was a little bit there, and then there was quite a large patch. I don't know exactly how many yards there was in front of the boat landing on Canal Cove Road. Now the boat landing, we are almost sure that the hydrilla came because people brought their boats from other lakes, and the hydrilla just hung on the parts of the boat. They did not wash the boats, so when they put the boat and they put the boat in the water, the hydrilla came off, and that's where it started. And the hydrilla, it's very difficult to get rid of because they have tubers that settle in the bottom of, it's like a potato tuber, in the bottom of the lake, and it stays there. And if you can kill off the top, but then the tuber's still there. So that's why we had to, actually they said to work for 7 years, but we've already tried for 5 and have not found it. But that we all feel almost certain it's because of the boats that came in from other lakes with the hydrilla hanging on it.
And did the fluoridone treatment, did it affect the water quality here at Lake Waccamaw?
No, it's tasteless. There was no major things at all. In our testing, as I said, we were at that site. We test for 8 different parameters for dissolved oxygen, conductivity, which means total dissolved solids that are floating around in the water. We also test for ammonia, for nitrates and nitrites, and then we look at bacteria and turbidity, and none of those particular parameters were affected that we could tell.
Let me rephrase.
Let me just, when Maddie asked you a question about fluoridone, if you wouldn't mind repeating what it is rather than saying it, because sometimes we'll just take a sound bite and the it isn't clear.
Sure, okay.
So if you would just try to do that if you can.
We're not going to hear Maddie. Just you.
Yeah, we're just hearing you.
Oh.
We're not hearing
I'm
the
sorry we
question.
didn't make that clear.
We're just hearing the answer.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
okay. All right.
You're the star.
And Maddie, count 1, 1002, 1003, 1000 after each answer, so she has time to add anything else that you want.
We're still rolling.
How did Floridone affect the water quality here at Lake Waccamaw?
As far as we citizens that recreate in the water, we could not tell any difference. And there was a hue and cry that would be something that they would not be safe to swim in or to boat in. But as far as our sampling is concerned, Floridone, we could not detect any differences in the 8 parameters that we sample for. And the different parameters, if you let me enumerate those, are dissolved oxygen, which is very important because the less oxygen you have in the water, the less wildlife and fauna and flora can survive. So that was not affected. The pH was not affected. Nitrates, nitrites, and conductivity and bacteria. So we could not discern anything in the 5 years that we've been using Floridone.
Okay, so Floridone did not change any qualities of water here at Lake Waccamaw.
As far as we citizen scientists, we volunteers are concerned, we could not detect that.
Could you start with just saying Floridone is kind of starting with that so we can know what you're talking about? Because as I said, we want to have that as sort of a staging ground so they understand what you're talking about.
So
Okay.
maybe you could ask her, just tell us what Floridone did to the water. Is that your?
You, sir, are on my list.
That's 2 demerit points.
2 demerits. No soup for you. Hang on a second.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Tell us what Floridone did to the water.
Can you tell us what Floridone did to the water?
We were actually sampling at one of the sites where they applied Floridone, which is what they used to get rid of the hydrilla. And we were told about it ahead of time, but they brought large buckets, 5-gallon buckets, I think 20. And this was the first year that they used the Floridone treatment. We were a little nervous about how it might affect our samples. And we could not tell, even the day that they put the Floridone in the water, we could not tell any difference in the samples that we had the year before. I forgot where I was going with that.
I think you answered his question. You answered the question.
What was the community response to the Floridone treatments?
Frankly, they did not want chemicals in the water. The people here at Lake Waccamaw, when we were given, an expert team gave us different choices of what we might use to fight the hydrilla. And one was to introduce carp into the lake, which would supposedly eat the hydrilla. Another one was to drain the lake so that hopefully would kill everything in it and it would flush back through the creeks. And then the chemical Floridone, which is supposed to be, as far as we know it still is, it's a safe, it's an invisible, like I say, safe chemical. People still do not want that to come into Lake Waccamaw because we are unique. We have so many endangered species and a unique species here at Lake Waccamaw that they didn't want that to change anything in the water that would prevent these fish and eels and mussels to live.
Now these species, do you know of any instances where they've been affected by the Floridone after all these 5 years?
I have talked with wildlife people who are at the sites where we test and have asked them about, we've been concerned about the amount of mussels that have died here on our side of Lake Waccamaw. And the wildlife people said that they, to their records and with their research, that all the species that are in the lake are still here, but some of them are reduced. And they attribute that possibly to Hurricane Florence or Matthew, tropical storms that we've had, but they don't know if Floridone had anything to do with it. But they were thinking it was primarily the hurricanes.
Is there anything you would like me to ask you about the water quality?
Let's see. How the water quality has been and what we have found over the years.
Okay. What have been your main findings as working on this team with water quality here at Lake Waccamaw?
As I said, we've been doing it for 8 years, and we had the people in South Carolina that started the program, Coastal Carolina University, said that we had to do it for at least 5 to establish our lake normal. And so far, we have been surprised at how stable our findings have been, and how good the water quality is. Lake Waccamaw is a very good place to swim, and to boat, and to fish, and I don't fish, but I do the other parts. So it's very safe to go in, and we have not found anything outside of the normal for the past 8 years.
How about the alligators? Is there any concern about safety with alligators?
Yes, there is. There is. I'm also a part of a community venture called Take the Lake, and we have it every Labor Day weekend, and we have 4 events that actually take the lake. We swim the lake, swim across it, go around in kayaks, and we run around it, and we bike around it. Well, the swimming part has been very difficult to get people to take part in that because of the alligators and the threat of the alligators. You know, say, you swim in the lake when alligators are there, and there are some in the lake. I have seen very few. They are naturally timid creatures, but we've had a terrible problem with people, tourists and workers, construction workers and so forth, that feed the alligators. And then the alligators associate people with food, and then they approach people, which scares people, and you know that's very bad. And we would not want a little child or a dog to be taken by an alligator. So there is a concern about the alligators here.
Okay, I think this is my final question, but how would you rate the water quality here at Lake Waccamaw today?
I would rate it a 9 on a scale of 1 to 10. Usually it would be a 10, but I think because of the past hurricanes and the increased turbidity and the agitation in the water, it has stirred up some of the bottom of the lake, and I think it's not quite as clear as it used to be.
All right.
Could you just for me, will there ever in the future possibly need to be more hydrilla treatments, or?
Do you know if there'll need to be more fluoridone treatments in the future?
We hope that there will not. I believe, and State Superintendent Toby Hall of Lake Waccamaw State Park can tell you how many more years we need to do it here, perhaps maybe 1. I know we've been able to cut down on the number of treatments per year. We only did 1 last year, so he has saved some of the fluoridone for years to come. So we'll have it. I know it keeps not indefinitely, but we can use it again. But we certainly will be prepared to use it again if we need it.
So the treatments have worked effectively enough where you don't have to do it as often?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, great. Excellent. Thank you very much. Action.
This is for turbidity, and that's for E. coli.
In the air.
Take it up, ready, and go right to that exact place and go. Perfect. Wait for the sun, wait for the sun, and action. All right, here we go. Let me say action, please.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm dealing with the light. I'm having to constantly adjust. Action. Pick it up. Take it away. We got it. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Holy Jesus. It's all right.
Hey, just go get some water. Did you already forget this place? Hurry up.
You'll do the name and stuff. I'll get to know you a little. Here we go, guys.
Okay, could you say your name for me and then spell it?
Toby Hall, Tobyhall.
What's your title there, Toby?
I'm State Park Superintendent of Lake Waccamaw State Park.
Talking right to Maddie. Go ahead.
Okay, Toby, could you describe your position here at Lake Waccamaw?
I am the superintendent of Lake Waccamaw State Park. I oversee all the park operations here and supervise a staff of 9 people.
What makes you love working at Lake Waccamaw?
Well, I love the outdoors. I have an appreciation for the outdoors and the protection of the resources. And my job is very important because we're here to protect those resources for future generations to enjoy.
How did you feel when the hydrilla was found in the lake?
Well, hydrilla was one of those things that kept me up a lot of nights. It was a very scary situation. We were under a timeline to get this the first treatment done. It was discovered in 2012. It came down to the last 2 weeks that we had to have some type of treatment done. If we had waited and nothing was done by 2017, which would have been a 5-year span, we would have had 95% coverage on this lake of hydrilla.
At what point were you able to start addressing the hydrilla problem within its invasion?
So we did, the initial discovery of hydrilla was in the fall, again, of 2012. We actually had a call from a local resident here that discovered a plant that emerged off the front of his deck. And we went out to take a look at it. It was actually a native plant, but when we pulled the native plant up, hydrilla was intertwined within that plant. That started a mass effort, and we were under a timeline to have a treatment done in May of 2013 because the tubers of hydrilla, which is basically the root of hydrilla, actually reproduces in June. So we needed to have a first treatment done by May of 2013, and with the help of our local legislators and local governments here, we were able to get that done and accomplished.
What was the overall community response to this crisis?
The community gave a 110% support to this project. The voice of the people and the community of our citizens here at Lake Waccamaw was a big reason for getting this accomplished. They made several calls to our local legislators, and we were able to get this done within the timeline we needed to.
What was the nature of cooperation between local officials and state officials?
We had a great collaboration when hydrilla was discovered. We actually formed a technical advisory committee that was made up of federal, state, local government agencies, and we met once a month to discuss strategies and resources to get this job accomplished.
What is the state of the lake now in terms of hydrilla?
The lake is great. We're actually hoping we cut back 16 to 17% of a treatment area. The initial area that we were treating when we started was 1,000 acres. So we actually cut a percentage out of that. We are hoping, this is a 10-year management plan, we're actually hoping to cut back on that and not have to do the full 10 years. There is no hydrilla that's been detected this past year or tubers, so this has been a successful project. The eradication of hydrilla will happen. We will be successful, but what we're concerned about right now is how do we keep it from coming back or any other invasive plants to Lake Waccamaw.
So Lake Waccamaw is home to a few species found nowhere else in the world. How does it feel knowing that you protect those species?
Well, again, Lake Waccamaw is called a one-of-a-kind lake. We have endemic species, which means it's a species native to one area. So we have mussels, fish, and snails that are native only to this lake. They're found nowhere else in the world. So it's very, very important to protect these species because when they're gone, they're gone. And hydrilla, if left undetected and not treated, would have put those species in danger in the lake.
How did the community feel about the possibility of maybe losing these species?
There was genuine concern. This lake for Columbus County, for its ecotourism, the importance of people coming to this lake was to see the endemic species, this natural resource. It's important that we protect that resource. So we had an overabundance of support from the community, and we were generally concerned to get this done within the timeline we needed to.
One of the things that makes Lake Waccamaw special is that it's a bay lake. What is a bay lake?
A bay lake doesn't, a lot of people think that it gets its name hence from a coastal estuary or a coastal body of water when you hear the word bay. It actually comes from 3 bay trees. Loblolly Bay, Sweet Bay, and Red Bay are the common bay trees you'll find in and around a Carolina Bay. So hence Carolina Bay Lake, and this is the largest of the Carolina Bay Lakes. There are actually 500,000. Lake Waccamaw is just shy of 9,000 acres.
Could you describe the neutrality of the lake in terms of acidity and base?
There are 4 creeks that feed into Lake Waccamaw. First Creek, Second Creek, Third Creek, and Big Creek. They're highly filled with what we call tannins or tannic acid. That actually gives the lake its dark tea color that you see out here. On the north shore of Lake Waccamaw is a limestone bluff. That limestone neutralizes the acid that are coming out of those swamps that feed into the lake. So that gives this lake a neutral pH. Typical like we want to see is a range of 6.5 to 7.5. That is why we have such good diverse biology out here in this lake.
What do you see for the future of Lake Waccamaw?
Well, it's important that, number one, when hydrilla came along, I really opened my eyes to know how are we going to protect this lake from invaders. Now, invasive plants are just one of them. There are also invasive animals, such as the zebra mussel, and these are things that we don't want to come to this lake. So my role as a superintendent from here on is to continue to work with state and local agencies to try to eliminate this problem where we don't see this happen again. This has been a very costly effort, and it will be a successful project, but we need to keep all invasive invaders out of this lake.
What's the best way to stop hydrilla from spreading?
We believe that hydrilla, our best guess right now, came in from a boat from an outside area. A fragment of hydrilla can survive for several days, so it's important that we educate the public when they come in here with their boats or vessels to properly clean and sanitize, empty out their live wells, and do the same when they leave a water body, because a boat going to another source can infect that water body as well.
Do you think other lakes in North Carolina and other bodies of water could be threatened by hydrilla?
Yes, there are many water bodies that are threatened by hydrilla and other invasive plants at this time.
Are there any questions you would like me to ask you?
No, sir.
Okay.
Can we do the cost of the treatment?
Oh, yes. What is the cost of the treatment, fluoride treatment?
Well, I can tell you that cost-wise, what we're having to pay per year has been over $500,000 towards this project. So this is a 10-year management plan, so we were looking at the millions in investment to this project.
Do you know the divide between how much the local communities had to pay in the state legislature?
When this came to our first treatment year, we want to give a special shout out to our local governments here, the town of Lake Waccamaw and Columbus County. Each gave $50,000 towards this project. If they had not done that, we never would have accomplished this. Also, a special shout out to our legislators. Senator Danny Britt and Representative Brandon Jones and Senator Bill Rabin were a big influence in making this happen. We had 2 weeks to get this done and to gather money and resources to get this accomplished. If it wasn't for these folks, the people in the community of Lake Waccamaw we never would have got this accomplished.
Could you ask about if there was any concern about fluoridone affecting the water supply?
Were there any concerns about fluoridone threatening the water or the species here?
When we looked at the particular herbicide,
Let's start again.
okay.
1 second. We're rolling.
Were there concerns that fluoridone would threaten the water quality or the species here at Lake Waccamaw?
No, when we were discussing this with the Technical Advisory Committee, it was recommended for this particular product to be used because it is a systemic herbicide, a granular herbicide, that attacks hydrilla specifically. We didn't want to use anything that was a copper-based product. Copper is a big one that we were worried about that would be infused into the soils that would affect the mussel species here. But this herbicide has been successful in just attacking hydrilla to make sure it's fully eradicated.
Would you say that the fluoridone treatments have been successful overall?
Yes, fluoridone has been a great product and it has been very successful. And again, this was a 10-year management strategy, so with the use of this product, we're hoping that we can cut a few years back on the treatments to get the weed fully eradicated in the lake.
There's one more question. Say we noticed at the boat ramp, there was like no sign about people washing their boats, nor is there a faucet or a hose to do that. So what needs to be done to better help people avoid bringing contaminated boats in?
Yesterday we visited a boat ramp on, I think, on the northern shore, one of the public boating ramps, and there were no signs to say wash the boat off, or there was no faucet to wash it off. What can be done from a state park's perspective to avoid further contaminating the water?
It's a great question. What we're trying to do right now is work within our Technical Advisory Committee to reach out to establish some new laws that could be enforced here and in and around North Carolina that boaters would have to clean and wash their boats and sanitize them before they put on a water body or when they take off. At this time, this is a volunteer basis. We do have wayside displays and we do have some signs, but there needs to be some stricter enforcement when it comes to that. Because this is a costly eradication process. And this is just for one body in North Carolina. And we need to protect all of our water bodies in this state.
Have you had any instances where people were not aware that they are tracking invasive species on their boats?
Yes. What I have tried to establish as a superintendent here is educational classes. We offer those to have the public view and see what's dangerous in invasive species. We've had workshops before on just invasive plants. The more we educate the public and more to give them an understanding of the dangers of invasive species, the better off we're going to be as a whole. It could be just as something as simple as a boat coming in here with a fragment that's attached to their boat or their live well, or somebody with a fish aquarium, because hydrilla is a popular plant for fish aquariums. So it's important that people know that just a small sprig of this can cause a serious problem in a new infestation.
Hey, Manny, I think we're good. Yeah.
What would you do to eradicate hunting dogs in the area? Come on, Toby.
Put up posted signs. They don't read posted signs.
Let's do it. Okay. We're rolling?
Can you tell me what is happening right there in the water?
So this is typical. Waccamaw this year has not had a lot of rainfall, and when we don't have that good influx of tannins coming into the lake, we get clear water that happens closer to shore, which makes our mussel species more susceptible to predators. Things such as bobcat, otter, raccoon, mink. Mussels are very low on the food chain. Also susceptible to bird species, such as great blues, cattle egrets, and things of that nature. So they're very easily accessed by predators out here. So if you see some of the empty shells that are out here in the water, they not only are displaced during a hurricane, but also you have predators that come out here that can feed off the mussels very easily.
Could you take a look down there for me and describe exactly what we're seeing with the tracks and the mussels?
Okay, some of the foot tracks that you see here are a combination of some bird species that we have here, egrets, great blues. They're typically fishing. Mainly the bird species here that are closer to shore that we see are after the fish. But they are opportunistic feeders. They can actually eat a mussel. You might see a singular track that's out here. That is actual mussel moving. It uses a foot for locomotion here. So if you see a single track in the sand, that's actually a mussel species that's underneath the sand. So it's clear water right now again, and they're just very susceptible to predators when this happens.
You don't have to look at Maddie here, but could you, for example, describe that open shell right there in the middle of the leaves that we see there, or the ferns? There's like one big open shell there. So describe what you think happened there.
Well, we've had Hurricane Florence was devastation here to the area, and wind and wave action. The lack of rain too, because we had Florence the previous year, and then we had a lack of rain this year, so we have a little more shallow water than we'd like to see closer to shore like this. So this is typical that's going to happen. If the water moves out and the high water mark changes of the lake, then you have drier spots where mussels are still under the sand and can die very easily, and again be susceptible to predators.
Should children pick up mussels?
Yes, we do have some occasional issues with folks that are curious, that want to look at the mussels, they want to pick them out of the sand, and we pay close attention to that to tell them that these are protected species, to put them back in the water where they found them.
Thank you. And then, Bob, if we could get
Yep.
some of those.
Rolling.
I don't know if you can see from your angle. I can see it here really clearly. They're closer to the deck. Okay.
to open it.
The kids pick them up closer to the pier. So I'm trying to find a native one here. What I can do is find it, I can put it back over here in the sand, and we can have a shot where I pick it up.
Just turn around.
Hey, Toby?
Yeah, I'm coming.
Yeah, just
Well, wait, stop. So,
when you're looking, turn, just face us, that's
yeah,
all.
if you could be looking down in the water but facing us, that would be good.
Okay.
Perfect.
You don't have to look at us, you can look
No.
in the water.
Somebody walking.
Tell me what you have in your hands.
Okay, so these are two species that are in Lake Waccamaw. One is a native species and is endemic. Again, endemic meaning native to only this area. The one in my right hand is not. This is actually a habitat invader, but the good thing about it is it doesn't attack native mussel populations. So the one I have in my right hand is actually an invasive species, but it's not like the zebra mussel. The zebra mussel is one that we definitely don't want to have in Lake Waccamaw. And this is called the Asiatic clam. It actually was introduced into the lake in the 1930s and originated from Asian shores. So there's been some speculation. It could have been easily just dropped in the lake or brought here from an outside source. But this is an actual invasive species that's in the lake. So thankfully this does not attack any of our native mussel populations. So they've been able to thrive here together without having habitat invasion and destroying our native mussel species. The one in my left hand is a native mussel. This is called the Waccamaw spike. It is endemic or native only to this lake. It gets its name spike hence from the ridge on the top of the shell. It has a spikish ridge. You can actually draw a straight line down the top of the shell. And this one has naturally evolved here. Mussels actually originated in oceans and naturally evolved up into freshwater ecosystems. So mussels started from our ocean waters and worked their way inland up freshwater inlets up here to Lake Waccamaw. There are actually 297 recognized freshwater mussels. Lake Waccamaw has the most abundant of biodiversity here.
297 in this lake?
No, 297 total.
Total, okay.
There are 15 mussel species in Lake Waccamaw. So a very, very diverse biodiversity we have here. So as far as total species in the lake that we have is 15 mussel species, 2 of them only being native to Lake Waccamaw. 54 fish in this lake, with 3 fish only found in Lake Waccamaw. And then we have 11 species of freshwater snails, 2 freshwater snails only native to this lake. So 7 endemic species.
So, Bob, did you get the close-up? Because
No, I can't get close.
Okay, so
You take your right hand away and explain it.
Okay, so the species that I have in my left hand is a native mussel species, only found in Lake Waccamaw.
Stop. You got to really hold it steady. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
and you don't even have to look at Maddie. You can look
Nah,
at what you're
you can do
doing
whatever.
there.
Okay. Ready?
We're shooting close up of your hand.
Okay. So the species that I have in my left hand is a endemic to Lake Waccamaw. This is only found in Lake Waccamaw waters. This is called the Waccamaw spike. It gets its name Waccamaw spike with this ridge that you see on the top of the shell, this straight line ridge. It gets a spikish ridge, they call it. So this is a mussel that is naturally evolved here and is part of our endemic species that are here in the lake. Our other one that I don't have in my hand that is also a native mussel to Lake Waccamaw is the Waccamaw fat mucket, which I do not have.
And then do that one more time.
Okay.
And after you go back and forth like 3 times over
Okay.
the area you're calling a spike, then just very gently move your right hand away.
Okay. Okay. Explain again?
Yeah, but
Somebody's
show your
walking.
hands- show
Okay.
your hands separated.
Okay.
That's it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So the mussel species that I have in my left hand here is a native only to Lake Waccamaw waters here. This is an endemic mussel called the Waccamaw spike mussel. It gets its name spike from the ridge that you see on the top of the shell here, this spikish ridge. It's almost like a straight line that goes down the posterior of the shell here. So this is one of our native mussel species in the waters here.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you need any more close-ups, Rob?
Well.
And tell us what that is.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, the species that I have in my right hand is not a native species in Lake Waccamaw here. This species is called the Asiatic clam. It was actually introduced in the lake into the 1930s. It is what they call a habitat invader, but thankfully this does not kill out native mussel populations, so they have been able to thrive together in the lake. The one that we do not want in Lake Waccamaw is the zebra mussel. The zebra mussel actually attaches itself to native species and can kill out those native species.
Good.
So the one question I have is when he was holding that, I don't know if you remember, Bob, was his right hand over that thing on his belt?
For reference, have y'all been to I'm going to go as close as I can without hitting bottom. How's that?
That's great. I've got in the water once today. I can't do it again.
Okay. We're good.
Still.
Anytime.
So describe to us what we're seeing right there.
Okay, right here is the limestone bluff
Toby,
of Lake Waccamaw.
Toby, let's start again. You can talk in a normal voice.
Okay.
I know you want him to hear it, but we don't
Okay.
care about him.
Gotcha.
We got the microphone.
All right, no walking, please. Here we go. And anytime.
Okay, describe to us what we're seeing right there.
Okay, right here is the limestone bluff of Lake Waccamaw. This is located on the north shore. This neutralizes the acid coming out of 4 creeks that feed into Waccamaw, which gives us the neutral pH. That's why Waccamaw has such biodiversity out here.
Perfect. Put your hand back. It's got a leaf blower going. All right, anytime.
Okay, describe to us what we're seeing right there.
So what you see right here is the limestone bluff of Lake Waccamaw. There are 4 creeks that feed into Lake Waccamaw. These creeks are highly filled with what we call tannic acid. The acid that flows in is neutralized by this limestone bluff, which gives the lake.
Can I just stop you for a second, Toby? I think you can point to it at the beginning, and then you can just talk
Okay.
to Maddie. I think
Okay.
you'll look more comfortable if you're not leaning on it the
Yeah,
whole time.
Gotcha.
looks good.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, describe to us what we're seeing there.
So what you see here is the limestone bluff that's located on the north shore of Lake Waccamaw. There are 4 creeks that feed into the lake that are highly filled with what we call tannic acid. That's what gives the lake its dark tea color. This acidity is neutralized by this bluff here, which gives the lake a neutral pH. That is for the extreme biodiversity that you see out here in the lake.
Perfect.
And then we'll have.
And put your hand on it. Take it away. Got that, I'm gonna shoot. We're good.
Away from us for about another 50 yards. Okay. Further to your right now. Further to your right. A wider circle.
Okay, let me do it one more time. How's that?
That's good. Okay. Just come on by, and we're not going to talk to you. So just drive by and keep going once you pass us. About 25 yards from us, if you can. About half the distance from where you are now to the shore. But for now, don't talk to us because we'll catch you on the mic.
He's looking right at us. Why is he looking at us?
Harry, can you
Just
do
have him
that
do it
one more
again.
time but not look at us? Yeah, but don't look at us.
Okay, good. I knew I was losing that ball.
Well, faster would be good, but